What is the most complex molecule we can create? That sounds like a simple question. It sounds like there should be a straightforward answer. A single name, a champion molecule we can point to and say, that's it, that's the one. But the truth is, the question is the simple part. The answer is a mess. And it's a mess because the word complex is slippery. It means different things to different people. What does complex even mean? Does it mean the biggest? The heaviest? The one with the most atoms? Or does it mean the most intricate? The most difficult to build, with the most twists and turns in its structure? Or maybe complexity isn't about size or shape at all. Maybe it's about what a molecule does. Is a molecule that acts like a tiny machine more complex than a giant static blob? And then there's another kind of complexity, information. A molecule that holds the entire text of a book. Is that the most complex? There is no single winner. There are just different champions in different categories. So let's look at the contenders. Let's explore what we mean when we talk about making something complex at a scale so small we can't even see it. First, let's tackle the most obvious definition of complexity: sheer size, the biggest molecule. The one with the highest molecular weight, the most atoms packed into one single entity. If this is our metric, the answer is probably a little boring. The winners are polymers. Polymers are all around you. The plastic in your water bottle is polyethylene. The non-stick coating on your pan is Teflon. These are gigantic molecules. They are made by taking a small, simple molecule called a monomer and linking it together over and over and over again. Think of it like making a chain out of paper clips. Each paper clip is a monomer. The final chain, with thousands or millions of clips linked together, is the polymer. Chemists have gotten incredibly good at this. We can create synthetic polymers with molecular weights in the millions or even tens of millions. That means a single molecule can contain millions or even billions of atoms. For a long time, researchers at places like Dow or DuPont have been competing to create the longest, most stable polymer chains. They've made polyethylene chains so long that one single molecule, if you could stretch it out, would be visible to the naked eye. That's a staggering thought. A single molecule you can see. But is that really complex? A chain of a million identical paper clips is very long. It's very heavy. But is it complex? Not really. It's repetitive. The structure is simple. Clip, 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 clip. Once you understand one tiny part of it, you understand the whole thing. It's big, but it's not intricate. It's like building a wall with millions of identical bricks. The wall is huge, but the design is simple. The information content is low. So while polymers are the undisputed champions of size, calling them the most complex molecules feels like a bit of a cheat. It misses the spirit of the question. So let's change our definition. Let's forget about size for a moment and think about intricacy, structural complexity. This is the definition most organic chemists would probably choose. For them, complexity isn't about repetition, it's about uniqueness, it's about the specific three-dimensional arrangement of atoms. Imagine building a sculpture out of Lego. You can build a very large, simple tower by stacking the same brick over and over. That's a polymer. Or you could use hundreds of different kinds of bricks to build an incredibly detailed model of a starship. It might be smaller than the tower, but it's vastly more complex in its design. This is the world of total synthesis. Chemists in this field. Look at molecules made by nature, things found in sea sponges, rare plants, or toxic bacteria. Nature is the ultimate architect. It creates molecules with breathtakingly complicated shapes to serve very specific purposes. And the goal of total synthesis is to see if we as humans can build these same molecules from scratch, starting with simple chemicals off the shelf. It's one of the hardest things a scientist can do. It's not just mixing A and B to get C, it's a campaign. A series of dozens, sometimes over 100, individual chemical reactions. Each step must be precise. Each bond must be formed in the exact right place, with the exact right orientation in space. One of the most important concepts here is something called stereochemistry. It's the left hand, right hand problem. Your hands are mirror images of each other, but they are not identical. You can't put a left-handed glove on your right hand. Many atoms in a molecule, particularly carbon, can act like this. They can have a left-handed or a right-handed arrangement of the atoms attached to them. A complex natural molecule might have dozens of these, chiral centers. For a long time, the poster child for this kind of complexity was a molecule called palytoxin. It's an incredibly toxic substance found in a specific type of soft coral. Its structure is a chemist's nightmare. And It's a very long molecule, but it's not a simple repeating polymer. It's a specific, unique chain studded with rings and, most importantly, 64 of those chiral centers. To synthesize palytoxin, a chemist has to run a long series of reactions and control the outcome at every single one of those 64 points. If you get just one of them wrong, if you make a left hand where nature made a right hand, you don't get palytoxin. You get something else, a useless imposter. The number of possible wrong versions is astronomical. It's 2 to the power of 64, that's a number with 19 digits. It's more than the number of grains of sand on all the beaches on Earth. A team led by a chemist named Yoshito Kishi at Harvard University finally conquered palytoxin in the 1990s. It took them over a decade. The synthesis was a landmark achievement, a testament to human ingenuity and persistence. It proved that, with enough effort, we could recreate nature's most intricate designs. So, is palytoxin the most complex molecule we can create? In terms of pure structural difficulty, it's certainly a top contender. But even palytoxin has been overshadowed. There's another marine toxin called palytoxin. It's even larger and more complex than palytoxin. Its structure is known, but to this day, no one has managed to synthesize it from scratch. It remains an unconquered mountain. So in this category, the most complex molecule we can create is probably something like palytoxin or one of its rivals. But the most complex one we know of is still waiting to be built. This type of synthesis is a beautiful art form, but it's also about copying. We are recreating something that already exists. This brings us to another definition of complexity function. What if complexity isn't just about a static shape, but about what a molecule can do? This is where we move from chemistry into biology. The most complex functional molecules are the ones inside our own cells. They are the machinery of life, and the undisputed king of this category is the ribosome. The ribosome isn't one molecule, technically. It's a massive complex made of many protein molecules and RNA molecules, all folded together into a precise shape. But it acts as a single functional unit. And its job is staggering. The ribosome is a molecular factory. It's a 3D printer for proteins. Here's how it works. A strand of messenger RNA, which is a copy of a gene from your DNA, feeds into the ribosome like a tape. The ribosome reads the code on the RNA, 3 letters at a time. For each 3-letter code word, it grabs a specific amino acid dot, the building block of proteins, and adds it to a growing chain. It chugs along the RNA tape, reading and adding, until it reaches a stop signal. Then it releases a brand new, perfectly formed protein. This machine builds everything that makes you, you. From the hemoglobin that carries oxygen in your blood to the keratin that makes up your hair. It does this with incredible speed and almost perfect accuracy. So, can we create a ribosome? Yes and no. We can't yet design and build a ribosome-like machine from scratch using purely synthetic parts. That is a distant dream. But scientists can take apart a natural ribosome from bacteria, for example, into its individual protein and RNA components. And then, under the right conditions, they can get those components to self-assemble back into a fully functional ribosome. This was a Nobel Prize-winning discovery. It was a huge step in understanding how these machines work. The next frontier is creating artificial molecular machines. This isn't science fiction. Scientists won a Nobel Prize in 2016 for designing and building them. These are single molecules, or small collections of them, that are designed to perform a task in response to a stimulus, like light or a chemical change. They've made molecular motors that spin in one direction. They've made tiny molecular elevators that can lift themselves up and down. They've made switches that can grab and release other molecules. These are incredibly simple compared to ribosome. They are like the first crude stone tools compared to a modern factory, but they are a beginning. In this category of functional complexity, the most complex things we can create are reassembled biological machines like the ribosome. The most complex things we can design and build from the ground up are these nascent molecular motors and switches. They are complex not because of their size or static structure, but because they have moving parts. They have a purpose. They do something. This is complexity as a verb, not a noun. This leads us to our final, and perhaps most mind-bending, definition of complexity information. Think about a book. Is a single blank piece of paper complex? Not really. What about a book with the letter A printed on it 1,000,000 times? It's bigger, it's heavier, but like the polymer, it's repetitive, it's not complex. Now, what about a copy of a great novel? Every letter, every word, every sentence is in a specific, non-repeating order to convey a huge amount of information. The physical object isn't much different, it's still just ink on paper, but its informational complexity is immense. Can we do this with a molecule? Absolutely. The molecule that does this in nature is DNA. DNA is a polymer, in a way. Its backbone is a simple, repeating chain of sugar and phosphate. But attached to that backbone are the four bases, A, C, T, and G. The sequence of these bases is the genetic code. It's the blueprint for life. A human genome is a DNA molecule containing about 3 billion of these letters arranged in a specific, information-rich sequence. For a long time, we could only read DNA, but now our technology for writing DNA is getting incredibly powerful. Scientists can now synthesize long strands of DNA with any sequence of A, C, T, and Gs they desire. We can literally type a sequence into a computer, and a machine will build the corresponding DNA molecule. This has opened up a wild new possibility using DNA for data storage. Why would we do that? Because DNA is an unbelievably dense storage medium. All the data ever generated by humanity, every movie, every book, every website, every email could theoretically be stored in a shoebox of DNA. Well, it's also incredibly stable. DNA can survive for thousands of years, far longer than any hard drive or CD. In 2012, scientists at Harvard encoded a 53,000-word book into DNA. They converted the ones and zeros of the digital file into a sequence of A, C, T, and Gs. Then they synthesized that DNA. They were able to read the DNA back and reconstruct the book with 100% accuracy. Since then, people have encoded music, photos, and even a movie into DNA. So let's go back to our question. What is the most complex molecule we can create? If you define complexity by information content, the answer might be a strand of synthetic DNA that holds the entire contents of Wikipedia. Is this molecule physically hard to make? Not as hard as palytoxin. Does it do anything? No, it just sits there. It's not a machine like a ribosome, but its sequence is unique, non-repeating, and contains a colossal amount of specified information. It's a different beast entirely. It's complexity born of pure human knowledge and intent, written in the language of life. So where does that leave us? We have at least 4 different answers. If complexity is size, the winner is a giant synthetic polymer, a single molecule with billions of atoms, long but simple. If complexity is intricate, 3-dimensional structure, the winner is a molecule like palytoxin, a masterpiece of chemical synthesis that copies one of nature's most challenging designs. If complexity is function, the winner is something like a reassembled ribosome, a molecular machine that builds the very stuff of life. Or perhaps one of the first tiny custom-built molecular motors, a pioneer of a new age of nanotechnology. And if complexity is information, the winner is a long, custom-made strand of DNA, a molecule that might not look like much, but holds a library of human knowledge in its chemical code. There is no single most complex molecule. The question itself acts as a lens, and depending on how you look, a different kind of molecule comes into focus. The future is about trying to merge these different kinds of complexity. Can we create a molecule that is both structurally intricate and functionally powerful? This is the goal of fields like protein design. Scientists are now using computers and AI to design brand new proteins from scratch. Proteins that have never existed in nature. They design a specific complex 3D shape that they think will perform a specific task, like acting as a catalyst for a chemical reaction, or binding to a virus to disable it. These designed proteins are still simpler than what nature can do, but they are getting better at an incredible rate. Some tools like AlphaFold from Google's DeepMind can now predict the 3D structure of a protein from its amino acid sequence with stunning accuracy. The next step, which is already happening, is to run the problem in reverse to design a function and have an AI design the sequence that will fold up and perform that function. This is where things get really interesting. Imagine designing a molecule that is a tiny machine. It has moving parts, an energy source, and it can perform a task. But what if it could also process information? What if part of its structure was like a tiny computer, able to make decisions based on its environment? And what if the whole thing was built not by copying nature, but from a design conceived by a human mind? That is the true frontier, a single molecule or molecular system that combines the structural elegance of a natural product, the functional power of a ribosome, and the information density of DNA. We are not there yet, not even close. But the pieces are starting to come together. We are learning the rules of molecular architecture, the principles of molecular machinery, and the language of molecular information. So, What is the most complex molecule we can create? Maybe the best answer is we don't know yet. The target is always moving. Every time we conquer a mountain like palytoxin, we see a bigger one like mitotoxin on the horizon. Every time we build a simple molecular motor, we dream of building a ribosome. The most complex molecule we can create today will seem simple to the chemists of tomorrow. The real story isn't about one single molecule, it's about the relentless, creative, and deeply human drive to build. To understand the world not just by taking it apart, but by building it back up, one atom at a time.